Hey everyone, and welcome back. So wanted to do a different kind of video today. I am going to be reviewing the 4K release of Ghosts of Mars, at least maybe kind of a mini review, but sort of wanted to take a moment to also sort of talk about revisiting the film. Now, I've seen Ghosts of Mars many times. It is a John Carpenter film, so obviously anything John Carpenter, I'm definitely going to watch more than once. Although I will say it actually has been a long time since I've watched it. In fact, I want to say the last time I watched it, I was easily still living in Chicago. So that was, it was a few years ago for sure. And it was, so obviously revisiting it while watching the new 4K release, it kind of made me sort of really think about the film and sort of think about some of the other John Carpenter films and sort of his career as a whole. And yeah, so I'm going to kind of take this opportunity, not just, again, to do a quick review of the new 4K release from Scream Factory. Now, for those of you who aren't interested in what I have to say with the other stuff and just kind of want to know some quick thoughts on the disc itself, I'll leave the time code here if you just want to jump straight to that. Although I hope you stick around. Now, if you get bored and you want to skip to the end, that's okay. You won't hurt my feelings. So as far as Ghosts of Mars go, of course it is some film that sort of has come, it's one of the last films that John Carpenter made. Now, currently, as of this recording, I do know he is, I believe, prepping a new film, which would be great. He hasn't made one in so long. I think, Jesus, 20 years at this point. And by that point, too, I think it was also part of John Carpenter that was starting to get a little burnt out, because obviously he's transitioned into other things, mainly music, but also comic books and stuff. And yeah, I think that was sort of towards the end where he's like, I need a little break from directing. Wish he hadn't taken so long, but still. It's I think you can kind of tell on some level. I think that's why, unfortunately, a lot of people sort of have a bit too harsh of an opinion on the film. Now, if you watch the film and you didn't really care for it, just on the basic level of entertainment, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And there are some people though that do kind of like pick it apart, and I think they do it in an unfair way. Now, it's okay to pick it apart if you're just trying to analyze like the story and the characters and what you don't think worked. But I think too many times other people have, which I don't agree with, is comparing Ghosts of Mars to John Carpenter's sort of top tier films, because this is not top tier John Carpenter by any means. Ghosts of Mars sort of falls into the category of sort of his, in my opinion, his post top tier time frame, and this is very common with directors. I mean, as someone who is a filmmaker and I love film, movies, and everything my entire life. So as someone who has really studied directors and everything, I did notice, not all of them, but the majority of the time in a director's career, there was always a point in their career during a certain amount of time where they were obviously at the peak of all the skill that they had, and either A, they had it from the get-go, or maybe their early films were a little rough, but you could see them sort of be turning into that amazing time frame. And then after that, it kind of started to fall off a bit. Not saying they were bad films or anything, but just, they obviously weren't compared to that time when they were just at the top of their game. And like I said, this is pretty much common with most directors. And it's not specific always to a time frame, but I mean, roughly, depending on how many films they make, you could sort of point out on average between 10 and 20 years usually in there. Like if they're making any film or films that they're going to be known for and most likely will stand the test of time, whether or not they're big blockbusters or even just small cult films like a lot of us like to watch, it's going to be within that time frame most likely. And for me, I kind of feel like John Carpenter's career, that's kind of where it sort of changed. So in my opinion, I do kind of feel like In the Mouth of Madness was the last film he made that I kind of feel was part of that time frame. That was, peak John Carpenter. And then pretty much the films after that, again, they sort of started to kind of fall off. Now, I don't personally think they're bad. I actually think they're good. They're just good films. Good, entertaining. They're just not, in my opinion, they're not great. They're not what he used to do. But you know what? That's okay. I got plenty of movies that he made that are like absolutely amazing. And the films that were kind of just good, are good, you know, and sometimes that's all I need. Now, before he did do In the Mouth of Madness, he did do Memoirs of an Invisible Man, even though I sometimes think it was after In the Mouth of Madness, but it was actually right before. For me, that kind of was really the start of, you know, sort of the ending of that, but he was able to come back and do In the Mouth of Madness, which again, for me, was really that last peak before things kind of dipped. And actually, again, all the films that he made, I'm just going to throw in Memoirs of an Invisible Man in the time frame, even though technically it was before that. But that one, plus, let's see, what was next? Well, Body Bags, which he did, I think that was for Showtime, an anthology, and that was good. And actually, that might have been before In the Mouth of Madness. Anyway, I'm contradicting my own point here, but anyway, so yeah, Body Bags, Village of the Damned, Escape from LA, Vampires, Ghosts of Mars, and The Ward. And then obviously he did 2 episodes of Masters of Horror, one for season 1, one for season 2. And actually, I will say, the one that he did for season 1, which is called Cigarette Burns, that was actually my favorite of the Master of Horror episodes. But all the films that he made, again, during that time period, again, actually most of those, the first time I saw them, it was just kind of like, yeah, it was all right, you know. I didn't think they were bad. I just thought they were okay. And then each time I revisited them, I would like them more and more. But out of all of those, it just seems like Ghosts of Mars seems to get the most criticism, like harsh criticism. And honestly, again, after rewatching it now, having not seen it for a few years, in my opinion, I like it. And I'm willing to defend the film. I just think it's a solid, good film. So if you haven't seen Ghosts of Mars, story-wise, it's a science fiction film that he made. Stars Natasha Henstridge, Ice Cube, Jason Statham, Pam Grier, Joanna Cassidy, and a bunch of other actors, like familiar faces when you see them. So a nice cast that was done for this film. And the interesting thing about Ghosts of Mars, which you have to accept the premise, which it takes place on Mars, which has been semi-colonized, mainly for like mining and things like that. And a town has fallen silent, and also the local police in this town has captured a fugitive who's been wreaking havoc, played by Ice Cube, and so the police are coming to the town to take him from the jail and bring him back to the main city for judgment, you know, to go on trial. But he actually got arrested mainly because he was being accused of committing all this like massive slaughter on like a bunch of locals. So this police team goes to the town to check out what is going on, and obviously to grab him and take him back. And when they get there, nobody's there, and it doesn't make any sense, but he's still there. He's in the jail cell. And then they eventually find out that things are not as they seem, even though some of the people have been offed. A majority of the people from the town have actually been turned into something else. This alien being that exists almost like in a dirt cloud that can kind of move through, and it basically goes inside you and sort of possesses you. Not even possesses you, because it just takes you over, and you become this sort of monstrosity. And for them, they're trying to protect their planet, which is Mars. So any invader, you know, which obviously they assume the humans are invading, so they're going after them in very extreme ways. But that's another thing too, because they can still kind of go around and still get inside you, and then you become one of them. So it's a really great premise. And the interesting thing is, it's actually, John Carpenter actually remade his own Assault on Precinct 13, because it kind of follows the same general story plot. Because in Assault on Precinct 13, of course, you have these police who are actually transferring a couple prisoners, but one specifically, to a police station. Oh, I'm sorry, they're taking him to a actual jail, but on the way, one of the prisoners is sick, so they have to stop at a local police station, which is actually on the verge of closing down, so there's only a couple policemen there. Anyway, so not to go off on Assault on Precinct 13, but on a simple level, basically, eventually they are completely attacked in that film, by these gang members who they want to off everyone inside. So in order to survive the night, the police and the criminals need to work together in order to just survive the night. And it basically, Ghosts of Mars is pretty much the same plot. I mean, once once the police get to the town and they have the criminal with them, and then all the, you know, alien possessed people, you know, sort of start attacking them, of course, eventually they need to work together in order to, again, survive. And I think it's stuff like that that, for me, even made it fun, because it was like, oh, he's trying, you know, he's doing the same story, but he's trying to do it in a new way. And even in a geek moment, without giving too much away, but the last shot of the film, well, not exactly the same, but close enough, is almost very similar to the very last shot of Assault on Precinct 13, which I admit, for me, it was, I geeked out a little bit. And like I mentioned earlier about him, you know, sort of, I think, kind of starting to just take a break from directing. You can tell he was trying things. So even in the storytelling early on in the film, after they get to the town, you sort of follow, like they sort of split up into groups. And so you follow one group and see what they discover. And then you actually go back and you sort of see what one of the other groups went and what they discovered. And then I think there's a third one, if I remember correctly. So you kind of experimenting with that kind of thing. It isn't too much, but it's there. And again, you could tell, like, he was just trying to make it interesting for himself. And for me, I think it also made it interesting. Now, are there things about the film that you could easily pick apart story-wise and all of that? Yeah, of course. I mean, that's kind of goes for any film. But, I mean, obviously, again, for a film like this, I mean, there are, if you want to look for them, you know, plot holes and things like that. But honestly, I just didn't care. I just wanted to have a good time, you know, and that's what happened. I had a good time, and honestly, at this point, I really enjoy the film even more than I have. And now I'm just going to do a very quick review of the actual new 4K release from Scream Factory. So, you know what? It's so first off, it comes from Sony, and I believe Sony actually did the transfer and the restoration and everything. And Sony is among the best, in my opinion, as far as doing their transfers and 4K restorations and stuff. So I believe this is basically just them, and obviously Scream Factory is releasing it. So in my opinion, like picture-wise, it looked great. Now you do have to take into account there are some effect shots that would not quite be on par as the rest of the film. Is not much. There's a little bit of CGI, but not too much. It's actually mainly practical effects, as well as some miniatures and even a couple matte shots, which look like actually like old school matte shots, literally like a painting and stuff. You know, not like some CGI created, you know, backdrop or something. So even that kind of made it fun, because it was almost like a modern day, like, you know, 50s sci-fi film in a way. Unless there was something going on that I didn't notice, for me, I thought it looked great. So, yeah, and the audio sounds great. Has two audio options, 5.1 mix, which has, I believe it's been around for a while. I think it's one that was also on the Blu-ray, and it does have the original 2.0 stereo theatrical mix. I kind of wish it had an Atmos mix, just because it has a really great sound design. And Sony usually does that. I know, not a Sony release, but usually they do that. They do put together a new Atmos mix for most of their films that they put out. And actually, they're great about always supplying the original theatrical mix. That would have been cool, but honestly, the 5.1 sounds great, and the original theatrical mix is on here, so I'm happy. And as far as the extras go, they're okay. Mainly, it's just the ones that are ported over from the Blu-ray release. Actually, some of these may, I think, let me know. I think some of these even go back to the DVD release, like way back when. So, I guess on the plus side, you're not missing out on anything as far as older extras go, which is good, because sometimes I hate getting a release, like a re-release, but it doesn't have all pre-existing extras. And I now, and sometimes I know there are rights issues with extras and stuff, but I am happy that they're all here, including the commentary track with John Carpenter and Natasha Henstridge, which is on the 4K disc, and then the included Blu-ray, which is Region A locked. Heads up on that. Does have the film with the new transfer, same audio options, the commentary track, and it does, again, it ports over old extras, but it does have at least one new extra, and that new one is Assault on Outpost 13, Scoring Ghosts of Mars, an interview with film music historian Daniel Schweiger, and then the rest are just older ones. I think these are kind of all from when the film came out. So it has Red Desert Nights, The Making of Ghosts of Mars, Scoring Ghosts of Mars, Ghosts of Mars Special Effects Deconstruction, as well as the original theatrical trailer. I would have liked if it had a couple new extras even. I mean, I know some of these are name actors now, so you probably couldn't get all of them, but even like one or two would have been nice. Or even a new interview with John Carpenter, just him kind of looking back on Ghosts of Mars all these years later. Just kind of something. I mean, I'm not faulting them because I'm sure they tried, but I'm sure they just couldn't make it work. But just as a fan, I kind of wish there were more extras on here. So if I had to give this a score for video, again, I think it looks great. So I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. As far as the audio goes, as much as I would like the Atmos mix. Again, the 5.1 sounds great. And the fact that it does have the original theatrical mix on here is always a plus for me. And it sounds great. So I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. The extras, again, disappointing that there isn't more new extras on here outside of the one interview. Again, I'm happy it does port over the older stuff, so you're not missing out on anything. But still, I like what's here. I wish there was a little bit more, even just a little bit more. So I'm just going to go with a solid 3 out of 5. And then my final thoughts on the release as a whole, including my own bias as to, how much I like the film. I'm just going to give it a pretty much a base 4 out of 5 between the technical presentation, again, the porting over of at least older extras, and my own personal opinion. I think the film is still a lot of fun. So that's it for my thoughts on Ghost of Mars, and also a quick review of the new 4K release from Scream Factory. Let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts on Ghost of Mars. Also, if you've revisited it, if you had like one opinion when you first saw it, but then maybe grew on you, like me, as you kind of revisit it over time. If you have the disc, let me know your thoughts on it, or if you're planning on getting it. And if this is your first time watching my videos, and you want to see more, I hope you do, please subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.